And joining us in studio now is Mr. Mike Manahan. He's a spokesman for EPAZ Incorporated. Their stock symbol's EPAZ. Mike, always good to see you.
Thanks, Don. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're going to stay on the subject of Bitcoin. We were just talking about that a moment ago. Your company has an app, the Zenapay App, which is going to be used to use cryptocurrency to pay in cannabis dispensaries. Tell us about that.
Yeah, exactly. As anybody who's following the cannabis industry knows, the traditional banking system will not bank the cannabis business. In fact, I was having lunch just this week with a senior vice president, one of the big business banks here in California, and he's telling me, look, if we even have a hint, he says, if you even own a building and you rent out the building to a cannabis grower, we're basically calling your mortgage. It's that serious. The traditional banking industry will not bank cannabis stores. Yet the industry is exploding, as we know. 29 states now where we have legalized marijuana, either for medical or recreational purposes. That equates to thousands and thousands of dispensaries. How do they get paid? Well, right now it's all cash. But with the Zenapay application, customers will be able to pay using Bitcoins. Basically, you download the app onto your phone, get it at the App Store. When you go into the cannabis store, you purchase using your credit card, you purchase Bitcoins, you then pay the proprietor in Bitcoins, and the proprietor can then use those Bitcoins either to pay his suppliers or alternatively can turn them into cash. So it's just an ideal solution to get around this cumbersome, awkward, antiquated banking regulations we have with respect to cannabis.
Well, it has to do with the fact that banks are federally regulated and marijuana is federally illegal, and that's the conundrum, so to speak, right?
That's exactly the conundrum, and the federal government controls the entire banking system, and the last thing you want to do as a bank is get in trouble with the federal government because they wield a lot of power. So, so that is the big issue.
So as you mentioned, up to now, until the app became available, these dispensaries were required to deal in cash. And that becomes dangerous.
Tremendously dangerous. I mean, I've heard of some of these dispensaries having hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. Well, of course, the crooks know that, so they have to have people may wonder, why is it when you go into a cannabis dispensary, it's like going into Fort Knox, you've got to press buzzers, they look at you on a camera. Why all that security? The reason is because those places have tons of cash.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, you know, for people who are unfamiliar with a cannabis dispensary, you think of a seedy little place somewhere on the back end of town, but they're actually like Van Cleef and Arpels or Tiffany stores. I mean, they're actually quite extensively decorated and, as you mentioned, very high security.
Yeah, and also, particularly in California where the medical marijuana is currently legal, a lot of them look like a pharmacy. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're clean, the products are all very well organized, they're well labeled, the people behind the counter are able to give you some information as to which type of cannabis product might be best for your medical issue and your medical problem.
Now, of course, the Zenapay app is dual mode, one for the consumer and one for the merchant as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, you know, it's obvious you need both sides of it.
Right.
So the merchant will have on the merchant's computer, whether it's a tablet or an iPad or what have you, will have the Zenapay application so that they can receive the Bitcoins that you're paying for them. And then the merchant has basically a Bitcoin bank, if you will, bank account, and then can use those Bitcoins, again, either to pay the merchant suppliers or alternatively can convert those back into cash.
Now, I understand that you went through a beta testing period with the Zenapay app. I guess it's live now and available at the App Store?
Yeah, go to the App Store. It's live. It's ready to go. It's usable. And you got to talk about how big this is. So the Zenapay model is just like the credit card processors who clip a couple of % every time you use your credit card. The Zenapay app is the same way. EPAZ will actually get money every time somebody uses the Zenapay app. And right now the numbers are the cannabis industry is about a $6 billion industry. It's projected in the early 2020s to be a $50 billion industry.
Wow. And of course, every time, as you mentioned, that a purchase is made, they're getting a little piece.
They're getting a little piece. It's just every day. As soon as that app is set up in a particular dispensary and the customers start using it, every single day a small amount of that transaction is going to EPAZ.
So the challenge now is to get the app in the hands of consumers and get that in the hands into the app into the hands of merchants in the cannabis industry. How's that coming along?
Well, you know, what we're doing is we're raising $1 million on a crowdfunding campaign, and that money is going to be used, one of the most significant pieces of that money will be used for marketing. But the nice thing about the cannabis industry, it's a very close industry.
Yes.
People talk to each other. I was noticing that one of the major industry publications has already picked up the Zenapay and featured an article on this particular app. So it's one of those things, very little work is going to be required to really get this out there and for the industry to know about it.
Check it out online at zenapay.com. That's Zenapay.com. Again, the company is EPAZ Incorporated. EPAZ is their stock symbol. Fascinating, Mike. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.